Okay, let's go ahead and get into the stock market technical analysis. Let's see where the charts are at. We'll use the charts to basically be our guide. We're looking for trade ideas. If you guys are finding value, please drop me a thumbs up. I do appreciate it. And if you're interested in getting additional market insights, additional trade ideas, charts, setups, everything, link in the description below for the private member group. Check that out if you're interested. Okay, so we'll go through the broad market analysis. We've got triple Qs. So the big thing, the key levels I'm looking at is basically right here. It's about 485.60. You can see that was former resistance. We broke out above it once, but then we failed. Once we failed that breakout, and really it wasn't much of a level when we broke out before, but now obviously it is. We came down to the major trend line. Again, rolling back out. That's your major trend line. All right, support, support. There's support, there's support. So that's your major trend line. Key level, of course, to watch is that major trend line. But then, again, tested at resistance, tested it through here as a few days, broke out. Again, this was the pre-market breakout after the Fed failed it. But now, these last 2 days, clearly breaking out back above that level. So that's been taken out. That resistance has been taken out. And I did say in the private member group, if you were shorting against that level, because again, it made sense to short at key resistance. Always makes sense to short at resistance, go long at support. So if you were shorting at that level, then you'd want to stop out on, a daily close or, really like a solid hourly close is kind of where I was looking at. So you just kind of stop out, you take a small loss and you move on, look for the next trade setup. And that's kind of how we do it. Now, at this point in time, we're coming back into those highs. There's obviously this gap to fill. The biggest level now to watch is, and I just don't think it makes sense to be short right now on the triple Qs, but the biggest level to watch would be this bearish engulfing candle right here. That's the all-time highs in the tech stocks and triple Qs. Bearish engulfing, and that has marked the high so far. So that's the biggest level. They're, as far as I can tell, they're going to go test that level, probably pop it and make a new high. But if anything, it looks like we're going to go test that level. So it doesn't make sense to be short right now on the triple Qs, and that's really it. Now, again, if we come down and the big short or a big short is breaking of that key uptrend line. All right, that's the key trend line that we just marked out. Breaking that would be kind of an all-in sell signal. But until we see that, that's the big short. And yeah, that's all I got on that one. But here's one thing I do want to point out. We look at the SPY, the S&P 500. Clear bearish rising wedge going on, and I've kind of got the major target marked out here. This is your S&P 500. You can see, look, resistance, lots of reactions. There's another one. There's another one. And we're just at the apex of the wedge. And then support, support, and support. So bearish rising wedge, all right? We're making a new divergent high. So popping up, kind of poking our head above the former highs right there. Just barely, and it's divergence, all right? Negative divergence. So tells me we're going to see a sell-off. It's likely time to look to get short soon, at least the S&P 500, but I'm not shorting yet. We are at the apex of the wedge, but sometimes you'll see these and they can spike above here and pop it, run a bunch of stops. So what I'm looking for is a break of this trend line right there. That's my sell signal. Until I get that, doesn't make sense to be short, but I think it's coming soon. So we'll just keep an eye on that. And that's the biggest thing. So now with that, and then also, well, the measured target was the widest part of the wedge. So you kind of, it's about there. And then wherever we break down at, which I don't know where we're going to break down at, but kind of looking at the range, I just marked out, it just depends, but you can see a move down to the 200-day moving average would be almost the projected target. So that's kind of what I'm seeing as of right now is once we get the sell signal, we should push down to the 200-day moving average. And yeah, that's what I got. So now back to the triple Qs. Now, I don't have as clean of a wedge here. If I mark out the lows, you've got a couple reactions there. And if I mark out the highs, I've got just a couple reactions there. So the wedge, the bearish rising wedge, is not as cleanly defined in the triple Qs. And so, you know, it just doesn't look as cleanly defined. So we want to watch SPY and the triple Qs. As of right now, I've got a couple reactions down here. So a break of that trend line would be probably comparable to the break in the SPY bearish rising wedge. And yeah, that's it. But no reason to be short right now because, again, there's no sell signals. There's no breaks of support. We just don't have any of that. And we do have, you can see momentum recently has kind of been moving higher. We do have this kind of spike high in momentum, which tells me, we're going to go pop these highs. All right. It tells me we're going to pop up and make a new high and put in another divergent high on the momentum. All right. Momentum will be less. It'll be lower. All right. Than this former high. You'll have the high here. You'll have the high in momentum right around there. And then you're going to put in a new high in price, but momentum won't be able to make as high, won't be as high as that former level there. And that will be negative divergence. And then at that point, we'll look for sell signals. So yeah, that's kind of what I got. I think we're probably going a little higher, popping up, making divergent highs, and then we're going to roll over and break down and have a larger move to the downside. So the risk reward, I don't see much upside from here. Triple Qs, let's say we pop and make new highs. Maybe you've got 3-4% upside, something like that. Somewhere just kind of a slightly new higher high. And then the downside is, probably the 200-day moving average, and we'll have to look. The widest part of this wedge, which is not the strongest wedge, but if we just want to play that game, depending on when we break, it'd be probably sometime here in the future like that. And that would set us up for, I don't know. There's a trend, there's a horizontal line right there. So I'd probably say down there about 446. So from where we're at right now, let's say it does go up, because we don't know. It looks like it's going to go up, but there's no guarantees. If it does continue to go up, you've got maybe a 3 to 4% upside, and then the downside from right now, all right, would be about a 9% downside. That's the major target. So it's still 2 to 1, a little bit better than 2 to 1 risk reward. That there's more downside, so not favorable to be going long, putting new money. If you are long, I think you could probably set some stops. But in general, that's what I see there on the triple Qs. Now, the big one, Nvidia, and this is the one that I've talked about even with, while recently kind of, we shorted the slight move down, but in general, I said, look, Nvidia is hitting support, okay? Until that breaks, it's support, and Nvidia is the market, basically. As long as Nvidia is holding up, they're going to buy tech stocks. So they're hitting support there, hitting support there. Okay, so each time we've hit support, there's been, no reason to just be loaded short on Nvidia or really even the triple Qs, because you're at major support with one of the key momentum stocks in the triple Qs. So sure enough, buyer stepped in on support and they're rallying it up. So very similar look as the triple Qs. We've got the big bearish engulfing here. We're pretty close. We've kind of popped these highs. As far as I can tell, they're going to pop this thing and make a new divergent high, and then it's going to roll over. All right. But the biggest thing to watch for is the break of this trend line. And, that hasn't happened yet. You've got support, 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 support. Very, very well laid out trend line. So when that goes, the market's going to go. But until it goes, no reason to be short, especially, we can short divergent highs and breaks of short-term support down to the trend line. And that's what we've been doing recently, is basically as we pop, we look for shorting opportunities down to the trend line. Once you're down at the trend line, you got to cover your short. At least it makes sense to cover your short, and then wait for a break of the trend line, all right, if you want to continue to short, or you can go long. The only play to make when you fall to support is to stay flat or go long. And if you want to short, you need to wait for the break of the trend line or rallies into resistance. So that's what I talked about. You want to short into resistance or short on breaks of support. And that is that's kind of where we're at on that one. Home builders look like they're pretty ripe to go soon. This is the PHM. Looks like a good short setup for sure. Bearish rising wedge, very similar to the market, the S&P 500. Negative divergence is, starting to kind of show up. But again, we have not broken support, which is this trend line right here. Right? They just keep stepping in and buying it. And today, it's not really broken yet either. It's just right there, so it's at support. We need to see a definitive impulsive breakdown to trigger a sell signal. And the major target on this one right now is like the widest part of this wedge. So depending on when we get the break, it's going to set you up for, I don't know. I see some support right here at about 120.77. You got the 200-day. So that would be the target. Yeah, so it's definitely setting up for a short trade, just not actionable quite yet. Maybe they sell off today and you get the sell signal, maybe not, but we'll keep an eye on it. I'll post it in the private member group when or if I see. Gold, all right, and we got gold miners falling to support. Now we do have a bearish rising wedge, but we're at support now and we have not broken that support zone. So you can see here, basically support right through here, support, and sitting right on it. So no reason to be short the gold miners while we're at support. I do think they're going to break, and you look and several of them have actually broken down, but the ones that have broken down because GDX is sitting here at support, they'll probably bounce a little bit, and so that's kind of what I'm seeing. And then you look at like Newmont, this one has broken down. All right, there's your bearish rising wedge, and it has broken down, but it's sitting at kind of the first level of support. So this one's probably going to bounce while GDX kind of bounces, and then these will roll over, and GDX will break that support line. So as of right now, the miners, for the most part, are kind of at support, and so no reason to short those, at least temporarily. I think we're probably going to get a small bounce, and then we'll break. Now, the big thing, though, to watch is obviously GDX. If this thing breaks this trend line, and that could happen any day, it could happen today. If that breaks, then we're going to get sell signals across the board, most likely on many of these gold miners. So that's what I got on those. Let's look at a couple of longs. So NTR, this one's looked like a very good long today, bouncing pretty decently. The bigger picture that I have on this one, kind of clean this up. All right, there's your daily chart. And my lines keep moving on me on some of these charts. I'm not exactly sure why, but let me kind of line those up. There we go. So on this one, you've got, you've got a clean downtrend line with several reactions on the downtrend. All right, that persisted for a while. We then got a breakout here. That's your breakout. And then we had a series of back testing that took place for a while too. All right, back test. Back test. This is basically a back test. There's another one. Okay, so we back tested support, creating a bullish falling wedge. All right, that bullish falling wedge was there, and you can see as the bullish falling wedge was created, we had bullish divergence, momentum moving higher. All right, as price was moving lower, momentum was moving higher. This is basically the opposite chart of what the S&P 500 looks like, and then breaking out here. Boom, breakout. All right, and we're moving higher. Now we hit the 200, a little pullback on the 200, but in general you can see we are actually setting up what looks to be like an uptrend line on the daily chart. You can see basically support. Yesterday they whipped it below intraday, but by the end of the day had recovered that support line, and today, boom, bouncing off of that. So looking like we've got an uptrend line to follow. Momentum looks strong. All right, we've got momentum just moving higher on the daily chart in the short term. So, looks like a bullish chart to me. Looks like a buy the dip on that one, like you want to buy at support. And this is something I want to go long on, and I am long this one. All right, I don't want to go long the S&P 500 with a bearish rising wedge, with negative divergence at all-time highs. I don't want to go long that. I want to go long something that has sold out. To me, it looks like it's in a longer term uptrend. You have a big leg up. All right, you have a correction that lasts over a year, a little bit longer maybe. You set up big bullish divergence and you start to break out. All right, and start to build uptrend. I want to be long that, putting money to work long, down here when nobody wants it. When after it's rallied and it's at all-time highs and it's ripping to the upside, that's not the time that I want to be going long. Okay, so that's mostly all I have. Again, we want to watch Nvidia. That's a key stock, probably the linchpin to the market. So very important to watch that. Lots of trade setups out there right now. Nothing that's screaming actionable. I mean, I think NTR long, it looks good, and there's definitely trades that you can be in, but nothing kind of new really triggering today. So I'm going to post anything that comes out in the private member group, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Take care.